Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar from the joint webinar series CORBEL EOSC-Life, engaging with your community through events and training. Today, we have the pleasure to have with us Katri Ahlgren, Luiza Fundatureanu, and Stefan Swift to discuss about practical tips for stepping up your science communications. Caitlin Ahern will be the moderator, and my name is Marta Lloret, and I'm involved in the CORBEL and EOSC-Life projects on behalf of BBMRI-ERIC, and I will be hosting this webinar. I would like to remind you that this webinar is being recorded, and it will be available on the project website and YouTube channel, so you will be able to watch it afterwards, but allow us a couple of days before it's up there. We will also accept the questions from the audience. So if you have any questions, please write them in the questions window of the GoToWebinar app. And you can do this during the webinar or at the end when we open the question sessions. We will be checking on that box. Before we start the webinar, I would like to introduce you briefly the CORBEL and EOSC-Life projects. Both of them are European Union projects within the Horizon 2020 program, and they bring together biological and medical research infrastructures. The collaboration started in the CORBEL project will continue under EOSC-Life in the next years. Nowadays, biological and biomedical research involves complex projects that combine a variety of different technologies and often operate at the interface between different disciplines. CORBEL will contribute to these projects by harmonizing access and services for complex research projects involving more than one research infrastructure that offer biological and medical technologies, biological samples, and data services.
So basically, EOSC-Life is sort of a continuation of CORBEL in that the same 13 biomedical research infrastructures, and now we call them life science RIs, so LSRIs, are working together. With CORBEL, we were focusing on access to resources, and now we're trying to publish life science data resources on the European Open Science Cloud, so that they're findable and accessible to European researchers. The problem that we find is that, of course, in the science community, a lot of our end users don't know that we exist. So or they don't know, they've heard of us, but they don't know really what kind of resources RIs can offer them. So whether you're in communications or not, and I know we have a lot of attendees who are not specifically in communications, but it's all of our jobs to be able to communicate the kind of science and technology behind what we're doing so that we can get these precious resources out into the hands of the researchers. So the goal for me for organizing this webinar was that for communications, there's a lot of info already out there, theoretical info about good communications, best practices in marketing, but a lot of it is not really applicable to our sector. So research infrastructures where the work we do is, to be frank, a little bit boring sometimes. We might have very, very small budgets compared to the other people in our departments, and we have very small teams. So a lot of you guys have one person, maybe two people dedicated to communications, and you have to be experts in not only language, publications, web, social media, graphics, now video. All of these things are getting more and more important, okay? So the goal of this particular webinar is to just give everybody a lot of hands-on tools that we can use now with the realistic resources that we actually have. So what are some things that we can strive to do, but understanding the limitations that we often have in our jobs here. I asked these three speakers to come because I think they've each done a fantastic job achieving really amazing results with the limitations of working in the research infrastructure fields or working with RIs in their work. So First, we're going to have Katri Ahlgren. She's head of communications at ICOS ERIC. I chose Katri because she's spoken about a very successful Instagram campaign that ICOS has done that's with a lot of details about how they did that. She's going to share those with you in just a minute. Then we have Stefan Swift. He's Media and Communications Officer at the European Social Survey ERIC. Stefan, I think, makes a science out of planning your communications about when to post, how to do it in a really organized and well thought out way. So he's going to share some of his tips about how he goes about his work. Luiza Fundatureanu is account manager at ZN, which is a digital marketing agency based in Brussels. And we at BBMRI-ERIC actually used ZN at our last 2 biobanking conferences called EBW, European Biobank Week. We were so impressed with the work that they did with social media activation, which is basically making a lot of hype and a lot of coverage over a certain live event, in our case, our conference. And our Twitter analytics went through the roof. We gained a lot of new followers. In 2018, we were trending in Belgium, where the conference was taking place on Twitter. And Luiza just had a lot of really great ideas about how to plan events in advance, during, and then after the event. So we're really excited to share those with you. And at the end, we'll have a lot of time for discussion and questions. So we're happy for you to type in questions at any time. You'll see the questions section on the tab on the right side at the very bottom. So without further ado, I will introduce Katri Ahlgren. Katri, you can take over.
I'm Katri, and I have worked for ICOS for 3 years, 2.5 now, and before that I worked on a private sector for some 20 years or so altogether. And this campaign was actually already being planned when I joined ICOS, but then we in our team just continued working with it. I have currently 2 people in my team, and one of them is working for ICOS and one of them is full-time working for a EU project in Fair. It's the EU project called now. Yes. ICOS is a European infrastructure as all the others, but we produce standardized and high-quality greenhouse gas data, which is, of course, super important even now when the coronavirus is hitting the Europe, but the climate change is hitting the world, even though its effects are maybe a bit slower than the corona. So we had 12 countries and 130 stations and some 500 researchers within the community. Of course, they are employed by different universities, some 70 at the moment. And the data is free and can be downloaded through our ICOS Carbon portal. And we were one of the first ERICs that were established on the environmental side. So the idea with the campaign was to raise awareness of climate change through photographs taken from the stations, and here you can see the stations where they are located. ICOS is rather Western European, as you can see. There's no stations in Ukraine or in Russia, but we can live with that. So far, so good. And do I get downwards? Doesn't help me to get downwards now. I have a bit of problem because I don't have my mouse with me. Okay, so what did we do? So we hired a photographer called Konsta Punkka, who is a famous nature photographer with some 1 million persons of the audience in Instagram. So he's one of the most famous Finnish Instagrammers, and he became famous through taking photographs of wildlife, small animals such as foxes or squirrels and so forth. But but nowadays he's also photoing larger animals in the different paid campaigns. And we paid him also, but he luckily gave us a kind of a non-profit price, which was a bit lower than he's probably charging for multi-global companies. So he visited with 12 stations in 12 ICOS countries, and each station, one station in each country. And then there was our in-house communications person from my team also traveling with Consta. And then the deal was that Consta took pictures, and then we produced videos in-house, and then both the pictures were published instantly on Consta's Instagram account, and then he tagged ICOS, and then we also published on ICOS Instagram account, and of course tagged then Consta. And there were small stories, and always with the connected with the climate change message. So this was not about the main message of the campaign was not that the green amount, the carbon dioxide amount in atmosphere is growing to 420 ppm at the moment, but rather that scientists are working to mitigate the climate change and do their best, and they are struggling in all kinds of environments to make the best science for the decision makers to tackle the climate change. As I said, we produced images, we produced short stories to the, kind of Instagram stories, and then we produced also videos. Consta is here, the guy in the middle, and this is the scientist, the guy in the left-hand side, and the lady is my team member. They are in Czechia at the moment, and at the right-hand side picture, it's from the Finnish Lapland. This is a video one of the videos that we produced. When we tried, it didn't work. I mean the voice, but if you can hear, it's good, but I can later on then show you. But this is so you see how the videos look like, at least. There's a background music going on.
We started here in 1995, which was sort of the beginning of the period when people started to put up these kind of towers. It's one of the longest running, continuously running sites. It's heavily cited. Over 150 papers are some, so one way or another using the lowest tower, lowest data. This used to be a heavily degraded forest area, degraded by agriculture.
Okay, so these were the kind of videos. I guess it isn't, you don't hear it, so I can just send the links afterwards, or you can go to the ICOS YouTube and check the videos there. So we posted these pictures on Instagram and Twitter and YouTube, and then we worked together with ICOS countries and universities so that whenever we visited a country, then the university also had a possibility to make some kind of news about Consta doing it, and also, posted the pictures on their channels and so forth. We have a contract with Consta that we can use them within the RI, these pictures, but not, but only when the story is about ICOS or mentions ICOS. This is a comment from a from our Instagram account. So what happened? The results, I just today updated these results. So the March figure is from today, and the Twitter goes steadily upwards. The campaign was started in July 2017, and then the campaign, the Consta, it took a year to travel through all the countries and then also we published the pictures afterwards. So I would say that the campaign lasted until maybe September 2018. However, we of course still publish the pictures or use them in all our communications, and there's plenty of pictures that we haven't yet published on the Instagram, so we do publish them at the moment. But the Instagram went heavily up. It was just established for this campaign, so it went heavily up, and then it peaked when the campaign kind of ended, because of course Consta tagged us, so everybody who followed then Consta then started to follow, well, not everybody, of course we don't have a million, but many people who were interested enough, so they started to follow us also because they wanted to see the Consta's pictures. And then it has gone a bit of downwards, but at least since April 2019 or maybe September 2019, it's also that we haven't put much resources to the Instagram because half person of my team has left, meaning that I only have a person working with Instagram or social media half the time that there used to be, and so this has not been a priority since last autumn. Maybe we can get it back if we can now hire a little bit of more help to the team. We got pretty good reach with the images, stories, and videos on the ICOS ERIC Instagram. So the reach here, you can see how many. The reach was something like 4,000, and several likes, hundreds of likes, and positive comments too. But what we really and then on our material or our Instagram, what we really made the difference is, of course, that when we put popular behind the scenes material, for instance, this is just a picture now, but there was a video behind it where this is Consta struggling on Finnish Lapland when the wind was really heavy and it looked like he would have been in the moon. And this piece of video has been shot by my team member then there at the moment. So there were very many views. And of course, the Arctic conditions are something really, how should I say, extraordinary for many people that from southern parts of the world. Again, I'm stuck. Does it open something? No, I don't want to open anything. Where's the screen now? Sorry. Here, I go to the next one. But what we really got high visibility, what we really got high visibility was when Consta put some pictures that he had taken on his account. And of course, hundreds of people, there's like 70,000 likes for this particular picture. And then lots of positive comments. And he also then, if there were questions about climate change, then he pointed them to us and we answered. So my team member, especially when Consta published, so my team member sat there practically with him and then answered the questions also very soon right away. This I think is somewhere from Greenland, from an airplane, this picture. And then the videos that we produced altogether 12 or 13, well, practically one of those longer videos per country. And they have gotten something like 6,000 views in YouTube. But what they really have been very useful us in have been when we have used them in different events where we go to, for instance, EGU or the climate negotiations where we had where we visited or participate in the Nordic stand and so forth. Lots of different uses. And originally the idea was also that that each of the ICOS countries, the member countries, will produce an exhibition. Well, we produce large pictures out of the out of the pictures, hundreds of pictures that that Consta took. So we produced physical ones that are size 1 meter per 70 centimeters. And then it's going to be a traveling campaign, and it is a traveling campaign. And we send it from one country to another, depending when and where they can then put these exhibitions. And it depends then from country to country that where they can have these exhibitions. And of course, we still use these pictures in our work, and then everybody can also use them in their work. In Finland, we managed to get it in the Natural History Museum, so it was part of the Natural History Museum's exhibition for 3 months, and there were lots of kids who then saw, and they also organized guided tours to the exhibition that we made for them, so to speak. There was also in the exhibition, there's always a small piece of information about the station and why this is important place to measure how the climate change is proceeding. Is there something else? Well, conclusions from general point of view. So choose your channels to reach your audience. Well, this shouldn't be anything new for any communications person. Obviously, Instagram was chosen because we wanted to reach the younger audience. Practically everybody below 25 years are in Instagram, and these were the people that we wanted to speak to about climate change and give the message that there is a lot of scientists that are working for the climate. The Fridays for Future and stuff like that kind of came later on, but it really then hit the nerve, so to speak, too. Also, like we did, we need to tailor the message to speak to your audience. So we tailored it by these pictures and by Consta speaking, and we also spoke on very general terms and on a rather laid-back manner and so to speak. And also we didn't speak about the science that was done on the stations. So we spoke about that okay, this is how it looks like, and the scientists are measuring, and this station has been there for 100 years, and it's important because on this and that, but not about how you can see the carbon traveling through the soil on very scientific language. So we had a very plain language there. Well, this campaign was one of the ways that we wanted to try to use to reach out for the general audience. And also we didn't want to in science, it's very often that you first do your study and then you go and tell that okay, these were the methods I used, and these were the results. So we kind of forgot that altogether, or didn't want to use that at all. So we use storytelling, and we also use these harsh conditions and faraway places as a catch to reach the audience. And of course, we selected some places were selected based on their scientific importance or interest, and some places were selected based on their nice use and extreme locations and so forth. Yeah, and as familiar, the behind the scenes was again proved to be very interesting. And what we didn't consider when we started this campaign, it turned out to be really important for the ICOS community as well, because when they started to see that okay, this was so successful, and so many people have commented positively on my work or my colleagues' work there on this station and that station, and showed the appreciation. So they were really proud of their work. Of course, they were proud of their work also otherwise, but usually they just have a feeling, I think at least our scientists, that okay, it's so complicated that nobody really understands and nobody appreciates it much. But it kind of lifted the proudness of the people of their own work and of the work that this community is doing. There would be another video which we then made, because when we had the first official exhibition in our science conference, Konsta couldn't be there. He had an assignment some other part of the world, and so we produced a video. But I don't think it is also. I don't think it's visible. But I can just show the beginning so that you.
I was the photographer on this ICOS ERIC project we did together. I traveled for 12 countries through a 1 year, one trip, and it was a nice experience photographing the scientists at work and seeing all the landscapes and stations and photographing the climate change effects and stuff like that.
And for everybody listening, we'll have the presentation and the links up afterwards, so you can always check back on the videos and see more, follow up with any details that you see that's interesting for you.
Yep.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Katri. And
Yes.
I see that there's some hands that are up, but we will take all the questions at the end. So we'll have to leave some time for the other speakers. So please write down your questions. Don't forget them, or you can already start to write them in the chat and we'll get them organized at the end. Great. So now we'll switch to Stefan Swift, who's going to talk a little bit about generating content.
I'm just going to talk a little bit about the social media output that we do through the European Social Survey. Just to give you a bit of an overview of the project, we undertake a survey every 2 years. 38 countries have taken part in at least one round since 2002. And we ask questions on all sorts of topics. We ask for attitudinal data on attitudes towards Europe, crime and justice, democracy, discrimination, government, health and education, identity, immigration, media consumption, politics, religion, tolerance, faith in other people, and well-being. And then every 2 years, we also incorporate 2 subjects that change in each round. And recent ones have been health, immigration, welfare, climate change, and the fairness of income. As I mentioned, we've had 38 countries take part in at least one of the 9 rounds since 2002. North Macedonia will become our 39th country in round 10. So I'm just going to give you a bit of background about my role at the ESS and our social media journey over the last 4 years. So I was appointed as the first media officer at the ESS in April 2016. There was quite a clamouring amongst ESS when I joined for Twitter to be launched almost instantly. And then Facebook we launched a year later, and then we increased our activity on our existing LinkedIn company page. So we focus on the channels of communication, the social media channels that we use. We use Twitter. We now have over 11,000 followers. We tend to post 2 to 3 tweets every weekday. We retweet when something is worthwhile of it. And we actually have 4 national team accounts now in Austria, Germany, Ireland, and Serbia. We also have our Facebook and LinkedIn pages. As you can see, we have over 1,500 followers now and 1,400 page likes. And on LinkedIn, we're over 600 followers. On both of these, we post generally 2 updates every weekday, sometimes dips to 1 over the festive period or over the summer. So in terms of content generation, I tend to categorize our content into 5 categories. What I'd term the sort of corporate news, the events, the news, the publications that we're putting out there. The second one is ESS in the news, all the media articles that reference either the ESS data or analysis based on ESS data. We also keep an eye out for external reports that include analysis of our data. Academic papers, again the same. And if we have time, and that's a point I'll come back to later, we do our own simple data analysis. So just to expand on the sources for those content areas, for ESS events, news and publications, well, we have one data release a year. So obviously a lot of our social media is around driving people to use the data. We would also promote tools that help you use the data. We'll provide training materials, and we'll also draw on events that we're having. A lot of our events coming up that we usually have as in-person seminars in London have become webinars, and that's actually been a bit of a beneficial side effect of the current situation across the world. We'd also promote our news, any blogs that have been written, and any job opportunities. We'll also promote our publications by tweeting or posting individual graphs, individual findings, when we're really, instead of just saying, here's our publication, we'll take you through the publication. And then obviously any internal emails of relevance. For our news articles that mention the ESS or ESS data, and any external reports that analyze our data, we've got a few things that we use to monitor these more generally for our media monitoring, but also anything relevant will be posted across our social media channels. So of course we have Google Alerts, European Social Survey in all languages. We have Mention Alerts, Talkwalker Alerts. They're all free services. They're all worth signing up to. We also have, so the ESS headquarters is based at City University of London. We also have access to all of their tools. So we receive media monitoring from an outsourced provider. We also have City's library service, and that gives us access to Nexus, Factiva, Press Reader, which are all great resources. And also it gives us a few subscriptions to media that is usually behind a paywall. We also have a few sources for academic papers that analyze our data. So we have Google Scholar Alerts. We have our ESS bibliography, which is for people that have used our data to post their published work on our website. We also have really in-depth bibliographic monitoring undertaken by our team in Ljubljana. And we have increasingly found direct message requests are coming from academics to notify us through social media of their papers that have been published. And in fact, I was responding to someone on Facebook just before I joined this. And then obviously data analysis. So our own content creation that we do at headquarters or across the core scientific team, but also content created by our national teams. So in terms of implementation and analysis, I think the real key point I want you to take home from listening to me today is limiting your time that you spend on social media. It's so easy to have all these 3 accounts and to spend the whole week responding to everything as it comes in. So what I tend to do is dedicate half a day every Friday and schedule all the content for Monday and Friday the next week. I schedule between 30 and 35 posts across the 3 channels every Monday to Friday. It's worth pointing out here that a lot of these are the same content, the same 10 posts across all 3 channels, just slightly tailored. And just a few tips. It's worth adding images to all posts. It means your post appears longer in people's timeline. For Twitter, it's really worth adding line breaks. So I tend to do 2 sentences and a link in each tweet, and I will space that out. So again, it appears as long as it possibly can in someone's timeline. And on Facebook and LinkedIn, I avoid putting too many words. So we avoid users having to click on the read more options. So it tends to be for Facebook, 3 sentences, Twitter, 2 sentences, LinkedIn, 1 sentence. We don't spend too much time analyzing the social media. We spend much more of the time producing the content, but we do analyze the analytics for all 3 channels monthly, and these feed into a more formal annual report. And this is just a sort of average of post reach and impressions across the 3 channels of the last 6 months. So I suppose what have we learned from this analysis? Well, at the ESS, we've worked out that we have real high points around our data releases. Our core support is from these communities. We have high engagement with open calls, particularly around the competition we run every round for people to submit proposals for questions in the next round. We did some experimentation with posting on weekends, and we found that there was comparatively little engagement during weekends. So we've abandoned that and we've gone back to just Monday to Friday. Our most popular substantive topic is immigration. It always generates interest, good and bad. We try and use as many graphs as possible to sort of enhance what we're trying to say. People much prefer looking at pictures, and it was really interesting to hear that last talk about Instagram. Maybe that's somewhere we're going to in future. We also used to spend a lot of time tailoring content that fit to hashtags that were trending on certain days, and we found no sign of that boosting content, and the time to source the content to match the relevant day just seemed to be not worth it. And we've not yet paid to promote content, so I'd be really interested to hear if anyone has experiences of that. And finally, I just wanted to finish on this slide. Of course, there are benefits, but I just wanted to mention a couple of the drawbacks. Obviously, we can communicate directly with target audiences. There's no editorial level. It's just us communicating to data users or people that might be interested in the findings. We engage with academic and more with non-academic audiences. I don't know about everyone here today, but I struggle to find genuine news content for our news pages on the website. So having it posting on this social media every day makes you look relevant, look up to date. One of the unintended consequences of our foray into social media has been this building of an online community. And like I mentioned, people directly messaging us saying, can you promote our paper based on your data, is something we never really foresaw, but is a real benefit. And really everything is there to promote the data and promote use of our data. Obviously, there's a few things that we can't even really measure, whether we're really communicating beyond our echo chamber of core ESS supporters. The time and resource commitment is worth thinking about. There's nothing worse, I find, as a consumer looking at a social media account and it hasn't been updated for a month. One criticism that you can't really do anything about, but worth pointing out, is being criticised for your post and open to abuse. But that is thankfully a bit easier now because Twitter. There was one immigration post we had that was hijacked by people saying that we were fake news, and obviously people didn't really like immigrants. At that stage, you just have to sit back and keep out of the conversation. And of course, analytics can be unquantifiable. You say 150,000 Twitter impressions over a month, but how many people actually saw that content? And that's me. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Stefan, so much. That was really interesting for me, at least, and we look forward to some questions. We already got some coming in. Now we're going to switch over to Luiza, our last speaker, who's going to tell you about event activation. Then we'll follow with the question and answer period.
Yes, so I've been, I'm working in a communication digital agency, and one of the things we provide for our clients is event activation. And I'm going to tell you a bit more about it, but about us. The organization which I'm working is called ZN, that stands for Zeitgeist Net. So Zeitgeist is the spirit of the times. We try to at all time be prepared for what's to come, because social media and the digital communication world is in constant evolution, and network because of our digital angle, and of course because we believe and always have to leverage the power of your network, and I'm going to get into more of that later. I have a little video in the next slide to set a bit the scene of more of a mindset, and I hope you have also you can hear the sound, but if not, please let me know. Yes, so I wanted to, with this video, to a bit get you into our the way we are working. We have a lot of clients from the science or health community, and that's why I feel like I'm not only speaking as a communicator, but a person that understands the benefits and the drawbacks of communicating in science. So I'm going to speak to you about the events because we believe they are a key story and opportunity on social media, and it happens a lot that people during events are the most engaged. But we try to explain or inform people that the best would be to not only communicate on the spot, but also have an approach of before, during, and after an event when you are engaging with the people that were going to participate at the event, but also that are just checking the online conversations. These events are, of course, a great moment to engage, and it's a hook for everybody to communicate offline and online. Generally, Twitter is a key channel in events because a lot of journalists are using it, and also, yeah, a lot of influencers. And it's basically a very good channel as getting news and short amount of information. You can engage there with your colleagues, journalists, and people from the blogging world. Therefore, I would like you to see a social media activation of an event as taking it out of the room, because that otherwise it's a big investment. Usually all the events cost a lot to prepare. It's a lot of efforts from the team, from the sponsors, from participants, and so on, and it will remain only to those people in the room. It can really be something that gets outside, and instead of having just a few people talking about it before, after, you can have a bigger community, and sometimes you even want some key players to come or participate in your event, and they may send somebody from their organization that is not let's say a top level, and you still want to get their attention. So a bit to see things not only from an offline point of view, but only also online. So how to get this event trending on Twitter, as Caitlin mentioned, for the European Biobank Week, we've been supporting, and in 2018 we got to trend in Belgium. So this means we also get to reach people outside of the room. So our activation process for events, of course, in an ideal context of constant communicating throughout the year, on your channel, staying active, as Stefan mentioned. So during an event should be seen as before, during, and after. And I'm going to show you a few tips for each phase. So for the before part, things that you should keep in mind that are to be done, not only to cover the let's say the communication before an event, increase the interest of people that will be coming, or the speakers that will be present there, but also putting in place all the tools you need to be able to have the best coverage of an event during the moment it happens. So first, it's good to create, of course, a strategy and a top line message approach, knowing what you really want to get out. Why are you doing this event? Try to steer away from just let's say a group pictures, or where at this event, okay, where are we there, what's happening, give all the benefits of everyone that will participate or that has to stay engaged, although they are not going to be there in the room. It's good to have an event hashtag. For example, for this year, we can have BBMRI-ERIC could have EBW 2020. Try to pick a hashtag that you'll be using throughout all the messages you are promoting the event. And this will give it's a hook for people to follow this hashtag and see everybody that's talking about it. Make sure you have it visible on your location, on your materials, on badges, because this will make people use it as well. Of course, that would be that's why it's good to review all the existing communication materials and see how an offline flyer can constitute a good source of material for online communication. If you have multiple audience groups, it's good to also see a bit the differences in terms of messaging. What would be good to say for each, to make sure you give them the right information. It's good to have a map, let's say, of all the people and organization in the room, but also the ones you want to get their attention. So if you have any kind of speakers, not only take note of their Twitter handle, but also their organization handle, all the sponsors, other participating members from the room that you know they will at one point have an intervention, or other organizations that you want to get their attention to your event. This can be easily done in an Excel sheet or even in a Word document, but have them there close by just to use them where needed. It's good because everybody knows that during an event, the entire team on site, it's running around. There are a lot of things happening. It's difficult to keep up with being active on social media, fixing issues. There are always a lot of unanticipated things when it comes to events. So there are a lot of things that can be anticipated, and that would be to create content in advance. It's fine because you know each session, what it will be about, what speakers do you have. So these all messages can be drafted before. You don't need to wait for the session that starts at 2 to create the tweet then. It can be created a few days in advance when your mind is clear and everything's fine, and then you just have it there to be posted right away. Create also sorts of visuals or content that easily can be shared. And of course, again, don't forget in the context, all the tweets that you are creating beforehand to tag the relevant people and organizations. If you know you won't steer away from your agenda, you can even schedule your content during key moments. The easiest is to schedule the ones at the beginning when you know for sure you'll open the doors at a certain moment. That's a good, let's say it's at 8 a.m. You just know that will be the moment the tweet can already get out. So these are some moments in which you know for sure you are going to have. This is an example of, so it's a simple Google spreadsheet. I took an example of the last year's social media crib sheet, we call it. So crib sheet is basically just a table in which you can, of course, put all the column as you want. But of course, it's good to have, as I mentioned, to have the tweets in order, the ones that you know might happen. Here we've engraved some of the ones that could be just they can, okay, the session can change or can be delayed, so we know for sure that those need to stay flexible. So you need a space to have your social media message, a count of words. This is relevant for Twitter, and of course, if you have any multimedia that you want to put, a link or a picture from the photographer, and so on. So then you are very much prepared for the activation on site. What is relevant for you to do during an event is to really report live of what's happening in the room. Take quotes from people of everything they are saying, and try to understand that participants are really more likely to share content than to create it themselves, and they will be happy to forward and retweet the things that you are reporting. And of course, the more you stay quite inspirational, the easiest is your message to get across. It's good to ask the members of your team or very close network to engage and amplify these messages as well. And of course, tagging, never forget to tag other accounts or use relevant hashtags. And for sure, you need to always use the event hashtag in all your tweets. This is an example of another table where you are basically preparing to take these quotes. It's good to have it split by the sessions. So this is an example of, okay, on the first session, we have 3 speakers. I'm putting down their names, their roles. I'm looking at them for their handles. So this is the social media username they have. And then just typing, and of course from here you just take quotes. They can be with spelling mistakes, they can be with a lot of things, but basically afterwards you have the content to create a nice written tweet. Ideally, you should have a person taking the quotes. That's a person that types the fastest from your team, and another person that just extracts the most important bits and creates a tweet with it. This would be in addition to the ones that you've pre-created, because of course there are going to be a lot of speeches that you won't have access to beforehand. So for those, this is the most relevant. When it comes to shareable content, it's good to, we also provide our clients with a designer on site that can create these very short quoted images. The template definitely can be created beforehand. As you can see here on the left side, it's a template that has been used for all the speakers. If you're connected to the photos of the photographer, so he's either coming with his card to your computer, or it's a system with Wi-Fi where he can really send you the pictures in a due time. You can use this when you live tweet. These are this kind of content. If you have a very high level person, they will definitely always retweet. So this is a good way to have endorsement from the speakers of your event. Of course, less is more when it comes to social media. I put here an example of one of our clients that it's basically creating small visuals with key information, because we know for a fact that people don't remember everything. So have this at hand as well when you know that in an event you are going to stress some of the things that you really want your participants to take away. I've mentioned that Zeren, so my organization, we help our clients with having a social media team on site. Of course, this can also happen if you have a team willing to help. So we recommend to have 2 people on site to activate and generate traffic. So this would be a person taking quotes, a person tweeting, and of course in between checking the hashtag of the event and see maybe there are participants in the room or some speakers or somebody that is posting something, retweet, engage, thank, really engage with these people. Additionally, of course, you can have a person that's monitoring the conversation, creates live reports. This is for very, very big events in which it's important to know what's happening online. May not be appropriate for each event. A graphic designer or a person with simple Photoshop skills that can just put in a pre-made template a text and give you that image to create these quotes that I've been showing you. And of course, a photographer that is there and gives you the pictures, not 3 weeks after the event, but during the event. And trust me, this time, all the photographers are getting specialized in providing this kind of responsive pack shot of images. So it's good to discuss with them beforehand. And if you, when you are scouting for a photographer, you know that he does not have in place such system, maybe it would be good to look for somebody else. This team will create this shareable assets and content, and of course we'll check the event impact. This is an example of some of our teams activating events. You see here some 3D hashtags, which are the hashtags of the event. These are great props to make people engage with, take pictures. We have here on the left side, for who doesn't recognize, is the Queen of Belgium. So you have even very, very high-level people that are willing to take pictures with these props. Don't forget that events are a great moment to take videos, to really capture visuals and footage that you can use for the entire year. Don't think that events is a one-time thing and then it's all gone. And this being said, of course, you can see here, this is the impact we had in our, while we supported BBMRI-ERIC with the European Biobank Week in October last year. So it's really a boost of energy, this kind of events. Of course, it's good to be sustained throughout the year, but these are the hooks, the moments in which you can get the followers that you want. If after, it's good to not stop abruptly after the event is over. You don't forget that you have all the time to publish information. An event online does not really die the moment you close the doors. It's a bit different how it works in online. Communicate and spread the content you created, a video, an interview. You can even have it published 3, 4, 6 months after and continue talking, because this is still relevant for your community. So just to wrap up a bit, always have in mind the event communication objectives. Make the most of your events. Expose all the things that you want to your wider audience in online. This is a great starting point for commitment with and of course community building with other members, suppliers, press, other institutes, and so on. And don't think only in a 3-day event. Think of an event that has a big lifespan. This is events are great way to amplify your message, activate your network, and yeah, this is what it's for me for today.
Great, thank you so much, Luiza. That was really fascinating, and we are getting a lot of questions coming in, so we know that we definitely hit a nerve with this topic. So I'll put up a background slide with all of our social media handles that you can check out, and I will ask the presenters to turn on their videos, and we'll get started with some of the questions. So I'll add mine as well. So here we all are. Now you can see us in real life. Let me get started with one, and Martha's gonna look through the questions and get them set up for us. But can you tell us, any of you think of one common mistake or kind of social media fail that you see often online that you wish people would just stop doing? So if there's one little thing or big thing that people could stop doing to improve their science communications, what would that be?
I can start. Yes, top of my mind comes the fact that people just push information and they expect engagement. That won't really come unless you have a call to action, unless you incite people, tag people, ask for really a communication. This is not a press release. Don't think on Twitter as being like that. So yeah, think of you as put yourself in the shoes of your target audience and really think, okay, what would make me engage with this post? It might be interesting, but at the end of the day, I can just swipe up and not really look at it. So really do not just push communication.
That sounds good. Anybody else?
Yeah, photos of meetings drive me crazy. It particularly happens amongst scientists, but I mean, all of these projects need meetings. No one has to see it.
Yeah, good point.
That's a really good. I'm going to put that on social media today. Yeah, and this brings us to this ties into one of our audience questions from Alicia. She says that, what about the effect of social media saturation? So there's so much news in general online, and people are posting. There seems to be a pressure to post constantly. Does this actually bring results, or can we be posting too often and risk losing our audience?
I can say something here. Unfortunately, not everything you're posting gets to your audience. So usually the most tiresome is for the person that's publishing the content, because it's thinking, oh my God, I said this 5 times or 10 times in the past month. Well, probably for a lot of people, they will only see it once. So these are somehow the good things and the bad things of social media. So I do not think that you should see it like that. Of course, you need to assess to what you are able to do, and as well think that the ratio of publishing content, it can be only 30% your own content. 70% it can be retweet, it can be sharing of materials, it can be really leveraging and engaging with other people, because they will also do the same for you. So don't struggle too much to create 5 tweets per day, because probably nobody has this amount of information to share.
Yeah, that's good advice. Okay, well, Marta, you have some questions from the audience.
The same thing came a couple of times, let's say. So it says, Katri showed us that in addition to high quality social media content, there seems to be an influencer effect. How do you think research infrastructures can use influencers to their advantage?
I can answer. I think it depends on of course, how should I say, business of or the topic that you are dealing with in your research infrastructure, and of course on the audience that you want to reach. But even scientists are people, and they are interested in other people, and they are interested in famous people or social media influencers. So if you find a suitable person that is interesting to your audience, then I think it's fully possible that it would be boosting your content as well. Ours is a pretty easy case because climate change is interesting to very many people in the world, and of course the younger, the more interested they are.
Thank you, Katri. There's one for Stefan. Have you had any situations in which data has been misinterpreted? If you have, how have you dealt with that?
Yeah, so when Sir Roger Jow, the late Sir Roger Jow, set up the European Social Survey with Max Kaiser in 2001, his biggest fear was that back then tabloid media would misinterpret results, and we do have quite a lot of instances of that, particularly in the UK, amongst the UK media. And you just have to keep showing what the data shows. You would always be accused of being fake news to a point by people that don't agree with what your data suggests. But you just have to persevere with telling, providing the correct data. That's all you can do.
Stefan, you mentioned in your presentation that people like the graphics better than words. Do you think that being able to depict a fact in a graphic makes it harder for people to misinterpret it, the way that they can misread words or misshare?
In a funny way, I think the graph puts the onus on them, so they interpret it how they see it. And the ESS has always very much been a data provider, and it still is mainly a data provider, and it's up to academics and people to look at the data and make their own conclusions, and usually alongside other data sets. So I think, yeah, the graphical representations and doing nicer looking charts is important for letting people interpret the results as they see them, rather than us telling them what we think.
But I could continue that graphs are universally in all social media. They are very much trending, and everybody recommends using graphs. So if somebody has the ability to turn data into a graph, he or she is a winner nowadays.
Okay, thank you. Marta, you got another one for us?
Yes, we have quite a few. So we have for Luiza, for a conference, how many tweets would you recommend that you send about presentations at the conference? Is it easy to send quite repetitive tweets with almost the same image of each speaker and the PowerPoint behind? But I wonder how effective these are if saturation point has been reached. It's a bit what we were discussing before.
Yeah. I think, of course, it's good to alternate. Yes, really having a photographer that goes around the room and has multiple angles of the same person, some are quite close, is better than, well, you being in your seat won't change throughout the event. So yes, indeed, you will have the same angle at all times. So if you are in this position, it's good to maybe focus on taking a picture of the things that he's presenting rather than himself, because that's, of course, brings a bit more novelty. And to answer the first part, how many tweets? Well, some conferences are more interesting and some are less interesting. But I think, yeah, for 2 people on site on a one-day event with quite a lot of speakers, we even had up to 50, 60 tweets in a day, which is a lot. But I think if you have a session, you can aim for maybe a tweet every few minutes. This way, this gives you a bit of time to prepare them, and it's fine if the second speaker starts. You can still tweet about the first one, because again, events online are different than offline. Nobody will know, basically, that you know, the person is not on stage anymore. What are you doing? Why are you talking about him? These things don't happen. So don't always feel the pressure that the person left. You need to recalibrate and change to a next speaker right away. So yes, try to see things a bit differently.
And I will just add, what we really enjoyed that Luiza did at EBW was they created these templates that you saw in one of her slides before, with a little circle for the presenter's face and then pull quotes from their talk. So that way we were able to tweet that image with just the presenter without having to, as the person who asked the question said, you know, have that faraway picture of the presenter and their slides 100 times a day. So having maybe prepared a couple of templates like that in advance can really, really help. And the presenters like it as well because they have a nice image that they can use for their, you know, to promote themselves in the future.
With the nice quotes, everybody wants to be quoted. So
yes,
it's also it's flattering for the speakers. So it's a safe way to get your retweet, get your content retweeted.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we also have, if we don't have the possibility to dedicate large teams to on-site engagement, which role should we prioritize?
Yes, I would say that. So I've done a few times in live event activation on my own. Of course, this is a bit impossible for a one-day event. It's quite tiring. For a few hours, I think it still works. So try to take as many tweets as you can, take as many quotes as you can from your key speakers. If it's an event you're organizing yourself, having access to speakers' scripts is much simpler to help you create content beforehand. So then you only focus on the people that didn't share that, or if it's a debate, then it's a bit impossible to anticipate what's going to happen. So I would suggest to just try tweeting. And yes, sometimes maybe you capture one or two speakers more than the others. So it's all about prioritization. I wouldn't say that you should maybe take pictures instead of tweeting at all. So no, I suggest that would be your main role. Just basically activating the and reporting of what's happening at the event.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Luiza.
I will just add on to that. We learned so much from Luiza about how much you could prepare in advance of the event. So if you, as she mentioned, can get the scripts or at least just the title of the person's presentation, create a document, a spreadsheet with the presenter's name, the title of what they're speaking about, any social media hashtags for them or their institution, so that as soon as you're in the event, you don't have to spend your precious time like searching for that stuff and seeing who you're supposed to be tagging. So thank you, Luiza, for that. But there is a lot. So if you are limited, you can have a lot of that done in advance or by somebody else in your office who might not even be at the event, and then use your time much more effectively on site.
So a question for Stefan. If you schedule most of your tweets, do you have a process to make sure you don't miss any developing trends during the week without too much time wasting?
If there's anything that pops up, then I will jump on. It's not exclusive, but week to week, I try and limit it just to that Friday afternoon. Otherwise, you can get lost. And just many of the researchers that I know of who work in this field don't really have the time to be wasting on social media, as much fun as it can be. So yeah, but I mean, we tend to keep pretty static with our content in advance anyhow, and we don't necessarily try and keep up with trends. Yeah, I've noticed a lot of our users in the last few weeks have been pumping out some of our health data to try and link it to coronavirus, but it's not something that I really have time to do.
Okay, thank you. Then another question is, what advice can you give to science communicators working in science organizations who are science enthusiasts but do not have a formal background in science or science qualification?
If I can say here something,
Yes.
because probably I'm in that position many times for my clients. Stick to the sources, or stick to quoting people, tagging people, maybe incite less to having to give your opinion on something that you will be you can be challenged of why are you saying those things. So I would keep it more like that. I think there's unfortunately there are a lot of people spreading fake news, also a lot on the science topic or health topic, and it's also because instead of going to really official sources, they share content or give opinion on content that is unreliable. That would be my advice. Yeah.
If I understood right, so if you are working in communications in an organization, you don't need to be a scientist to do that. I have no scientific background. I have just a total different field, and you just learn your stuff, and it's on a certain level. You don't need to go to the where's the camera? Deep to the deep science, but you can learn it to a certain level, and then if you're not sure, then you check with the expert. And it's better that you know your field, the communications, than you know the science, because you're not doing science if you are communicating it, in my opinion. Of course, it doesn't hurt if you are a scientist also, but you should know the stuff of communications too.
We have a related question, a contrary question about, so what about the opposite? If you are a science person now working in communications, but you don't have a background in communications?
My advice would be that learn the skills. It's a skill. It's not something that people inherit. It can be learned, but it would help if you learned not by trial and error, but through educating yourself. For instance, through this excellent webinar.
Exactly. And the next one, which we'll talk about at the end. Definitely. So specifically webinars, we've all been to lots of workshops on communications, some science related or research related, some not. I try to read articles, also some things that I find on social media that have been shared by my colleagues. So I don't know if anybody else has special tips to present, to share.
I'll just say keep it simple, really. Think about the simplest way you can say things. The beauty of social media is that you have character limits, or at least limits on avoiding the read more options, and use them to your advantage. Keep what you're trying to say as simple as possible.
Yeah, I agree.
Me too.
I think we'll go for one or two more questions and then we can close this. So one of them is for Katri. What was the budget to employ the wildlife photographer?
Well, there were different types of costs involved. We paid the photographer a daily price per like a journey. So if it took like 3 days, I think it was like 3,000 per day, maybe 1,000 euros a day. And then we covered his costs and then our costs. And it was then divided that the costs visiting the station, if there were any, then they were covered by the university who owned the station or run the station. So all in all, we had a budget of something like 50,000, but we didn't use all that money at all. So, but it of course depends who you hire as an external photographer. YouTubers can be really expensive if you go for somebody who is really kind of a famous YouTuber, but yeah. And it also pays to well, not pay maybe is a wrong word, but it's worthwhile trying to get a lower price if you do something like non-profit, because many people have all kinds of causes, and if you and they probably you know, charge different prices from Microsoft or Google than from an RI.
Katri, can I add to that? If you had to choose between, you know, hiring a really good, expensive photographer for a couple of photos, or, you know, one location, versus hiring a cheaper one to cover multiple locations, as we are often from distributed infrastructures, what would you choose, given your experience?
Well, I would maybe hire a good enough photographer for several places, because if you have only good pictures, let's say, that have only a snowy place somewhere on the mountain, and then you have a wide variety of locations that you want to use, then you need to get those crappy pictures by yourself or whoever, I mean, or by the scientist in the worst case scenario, who is only taking, you know, too dark pictures or something like that. So I would hire a reasonably good photographer.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll take one more question from the audience, and with that we are quite well covered and almost at for 1/2 So besides follower numbers and engagement, have there been other indicators of success for your media campaigns? For example, in the form of more people applying for jobs, or policy change driven by research promoted by your post, etc.
Stefan, you look like you want to talk.
Yeah, well, since we've implemented social media channels, the number of data users has increased. Whether that's related is unclear. They've always been increasing, but the rate's slightly higher now. I like to take credit for that, but I couldn't tell you if that is actually the case. That's it, really.
I would say the same, that it's difficult to say whether the policy has been changed thanks to our social media. For sure not thanks to, well, we did some press releases about some reports of Copernicus, and then that ended up being a huge project for us. So and then we tweeted and tagged it to that the writers of those reports in the EU and in the Copernicus. So now we're in a project. So maybe that was thanks to that, but also, of course, the reputation of the organization always plays also a role. If ICOS would not be considered as a good partner for that particular project, then we wouldn't be in, regardless of how many press releases we write. And what I would say in terms of this ICOScapes campaign, so I wouldn't say that we get more applicants or anything like that, but I would say maybe that the internal community kind of togetherness and being valued, or sense of being valued, is really a very important result for us, because as a distributed research infrastructure has increased the engagement and the cohesion within the RI.
I think this is a question that could go on its own webinar, which is, you know, how to get outside our echo chamber, as some of the questions have been pointing to also. So are we just doing this just to post more posts and get more likes from the same people, or, you know, how to really get outside and reach new audiences? So stay tuned maybe for some future ones.
I must report the one. This is only one example, but it's so cute. I have to report. We made this exhibition in the Natural History Museum with the pictures there, and then there was a class from I think it was elementary school class. Well, there were of course thousands of people visiting it, but then we got a letter from an elementary school student, a 10-year-old boy, who wrote that, yes, I visited the ICOScapes and made my science project about the greenhouse gas measurements. And these young kids, they can be incredibly smart nowadays. And then he had copied some information on our website, and then he asked that why is not, I am from Spain, that why is not Spain within ICOS, and can you please send my this presentation that I made to the science minister of Spain and respective people there, and then we actually were in discussion with the people in Spain, and then we shared this message with the Spanish ministry people, and they were also very taken by this cute, lovely message from this 10-year-old boy from Finland who has visited ICOS caves and demanded that Spain is also going to be in ICOS, and this was actually just a couple of weeks after Spain had announced that they will be in ICOS next year or this year.
Nice. Oh, that's wonderful.
But they were very touched also within the Spanish ministry about how smart and good their young people are.
Yeah, that's a good lesson, that you never know when you put a message out into the world, who's gonna read it and what kind of effect it's gonna have.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody so much for our speakers. This was really interesting for us, and for everybody with their really thoughtful questions. I'm sorry that we couldn't address all of them in this webinar, but we will be back for best practices, where we can hopefully maybe address a little bit more. You'll get the recording and be able to see these presentations, so with all the links and our social media handles, so you can follow us as well and see what we're doing well and what we're not doing well, what we could improve on using the tips that we learned today. And I'll let Marta tell you about some upcoming webinars. Of course, given the situation, a lot of things have been postponed. So Marta.
So yeah, I just wanted to let you know that we have 2 more webinars in this series. One is about course design and delivery, guidance and tips for impactful training. And the other one is best practice in training and communication, where we will discuss a bit more about both training and communication. But they have had to be rescheduled. We'll try to announce the new dates as soon as possible, but they will still be run quite soon. So yeah, thank you very much for attending, and thank you to all the speakers for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks again for coming, and have a nice rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.